Now moving to the second round of questions, which is actually what movements expect from elected officials. So now I'm asking all four of you, what can you do for the movement? Being a naive movement activist, I want to stop the war, and I'm wondering, Mabel, why don't I see a bill, troops out of Afghanistan? So, Mabel, why don't I see this bill? Wouldn't it matter? Is there pressure from somebody not to put such a bill to the floor? Or is there not enough support from the voters? And if so, where are the voters? Where is the peace movement beleaguering the parliament in Victoria so that you inside the parliament building then could say, look, guys, if we don't pass this bill, then you'll be severely in trouble. Where is the bill, troops out of Afghanistan?
Thanks for the question, Ingo. And I think that question can be appreciated in the context of what is the legislative agenda for peace and social justice in Canada. And I was asking that exact question also in my new role in the provincial government. And so I started to convene, we have in Vancouver, we convened, carrying from the tradition of David Chodnosky. He called together, it was called the Progressive Electors. So within Vancouver, that's municipal, provincial, and also federal politicians to look at how we can work together on our common aims and goals. And so I was interested in looking at this model from a broader peace and social justice legislative agenda, to look at how we can work together also at the municipal, provincial, and federal level through all jurisdictions right across Canada in terms of identifying some of our goals and working together more effectively. In terms of the specific question of the bill for troops out of Afghanistan, I think Jean can speak to that on the federal level, but my understanding is that Jack Layton and the federal NDP have taken that position to call for the immediate withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. That's my understanding. And as well, there's another excellent initiative that's come through Bill 6A, and Gene Crowder can also speak more on that. He's successfully moved a private member's bill for Canada to adopt a Department of Peace in our government. And I'll let Jean, you'll be talking about that. So those are some examples on the federal, federal scene in terms of federal legislation. I'm very much interested also on the provincial level, what we can bring forward for legislation promoting peace and social justice. So I'm currently undertaking a study for that. I understand New Zealand has some legislation. Actually, I should maybe talk to the students from Windermere because it's on the issue of curriculum development, promoting peace and social justice that apparently they've moved forward in New Zealand. So I'm very interested in looking into that and working on that here in BC.
Okay. Well, I wanted to pass this question on to Jean directly anyways.
Just on Afghanistan, I think most of you are probably well aware that there was a motion in the House of Commons around extension of the mission in Afghanistan to 2011. And of course, we adamantly opposed that, and it passed. And this is where what you can do is, as social justice movements comes in. In the House of Commons, New Democrats currently have 36 seats out of 308. And the reality of it is that we do not get to set the national legislative agenda. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't accomplish things, because we can and we do. But the motion on Afghanistan was a good example of where it was really important for the peace movement across this country to mobilize and put pressure on the Liberals, because the Liberals supported that motion. They supported the motion to keep the troops in Afghanistan beyond 2011. So we raise the issues in the House of Commons. We do other work around it. The Department of Peace is a really good example. Bill 6A has tabled that private member's bill, and I've seconded it. And we don't have a date yet when it's going to come up for debate, but that kind of initiative, the Department of Peace initiative, was put together because of the social justice, the peace movement across this country. Bill didn't just go to bed one night and dream it up. It was the work that people many of you, I'm sure, in this room have done to make sure that that got onto the legislative agenda. The other thing is that there's a group of us that belong to an association called Parliamentarians for Nuclear Disarmament. And you can encourage your own member of parliament to join that association and get active in it. I mean, those are the kind of important partnerships that can help keep that progressive social agenda on the legislative agenda. And there's a number of other things that we can do in terms of keeping progressive issues on the agenda, whether it's private members' bills, whether it's motions, whether it's getting progressive witnesses to committees on pieces of legislation. So there's a lot of other things that we can also do to make sure that your voice is heard in the legislative agenda.
Thanks very much. And now let's see what the unions can do for the movement. Of course, they could say, well, we are one of the movements anyways. And I remember there were times when Labour was self-confident enough to say, we are the movement.
In the 30s, they were nice enough to put them in camps so that people could form a union and they were all in one place, and it helped a whole lot. Today, the unemployed are mostly, they're not there. They're not public. They haven't got a presence. We talked about organizing demonstrations with them. How do you find them? Our work at this point has been focused on low-wage workers, which are often the unemployed workers, from one day to the next. And so we've got a very interesting project we've started now, which is a low-wage workers network, where we're going out to organize workers who don't have a union. This sort of follows on from our minimum wage campaign, which we've been fighting to get the minimum wage raised in the province, not to a livable wage, unfortunately, but to at least $10. And so we believe the Labour movement has to find new ways of organizing.
Looking for ideas to organize the unemployed workers. Well, maybe we ask our friends from US unions. So similar question for you, Fred. You're not going to Ottawa. Are you preparing a march on Washington? I seem to remember there was such a thing. Or are you thinking about a march on Wall Street? Or what is going on in terms of trying to organize the unemployed workers in the United States?
You know, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, passed the National Relations Act and the Unemployment Insurance Act in 1935, and Social Security at the same time. But these were not things that came straight out of FDR's head like Zeus birthing Athena. It was because there were movements from below that were pushing FDR to do that. And I think it's similar today. What we have in Obama is the opportunity to help him be the best Obama that he could be by being out in the streets ourselves and by mobilizing and educating, as Jim was saying. And it won't happen without that, because he has too many pressures coming from the wrong direction, and that's the only way it'll take place. What he has given us an opening around is that the idea of government is no longer seen exclusively by the people in government as a negative. That government is not something that should continuously be cut, that the word is not said as if it's a dirty word, and he even has helped to open up the discussion of progressive tax policy by saying that the top 5% need to pay more for the privilege of what they have.
Now we are calling your opinion. On electoral politics, you can choose between empowering political parties through proportional representation, or, if you are ready for it, you can empower your individual right to initiative, recall, and referendum. In other words, direct democracy.